Hi all, I'm Dan Smigrod, founder of the We Get Around Network Forum. Today is Thursday, March 21st, 2019, and you're watching WGAN-TV live at 5. Our guest today is Kevin Dole. Hey Kevin, good to see you.
Hi Dan.
Good to see you again, Kevin. So Kevin, I'm so excited about having Kevin on the show today. Los Angeles-based Matterport service provider. His company, Home3D.us, professional photographer, Matterport service provider, aerial photographer, and I think today you're going to add a lot more stuff that you're going to talk about. So, the topic for our show, I guess, is Matterport versus Geo CV versus Nodal View versus Zillow 3D Home. And Kevin, I think, this kind of sort of started out. We have this We Get Around Network 360 camera loaner program, and you borrowed the Geo CV kit from us, and then you wrote about it in the forum today. You had a moment of insanity. What was that moment? What happened?
Well, I had recently, it was a couple months ago now, but I had recently shot a very luxury home, about 5,000 square feet in Calabasas, California, just west of Los Angeles. And I had been hired in that case. Everything I do is a la carte, whatever the agent wants. In that case, I was hired to do HDR stills and a production video, which I come from a filmmaking background, so that's often what I'm asked about. No 3D, no walkthrough of any type, but it was an interesting property. It was perched on a hillside, so there was three-dimensional terrain, which is always great for drone flights and so forth, as we know. And so it seemed, I got in touch with the agent and I said, well, what about if I do a whole bunch of work for you for free and come out and say, what do you mean? He says, well, she hadn't hired me to do Matterport, but she was aware of it. And I said, well, I'm testing a number of different processes for 3D walkthroughs, and this would be a great house for it, particularly because it's a one-story, so it's easy to look in the Dollhouse view. And if the owners are tolerant to having me underfoot for 3 days, I'll come out, despite the size of the house, I'll do the whole house with all these different systems so that we can look at them. And she said, fine. And she talked to the owners and they said, fine. I think they were happy to see me go after several days, but the house is on the market. So that's where it began. It seemed to be a good opportunity. And in particular, I wanted to test the, like so many of us probably, I was really impressed with the GeoC 3D indoor-outdoor process of being able to add 3D terrain exteriors to the modeling presentation. And so I talked with Anton, and I had to go back there, shoot the drone stuff several times before I.
Well, you're getting a little bit ahead of us. So,
but anyway,
why don't you share your screen and show us the video of the house?
Yeah, so you'll know what we started with here.
And I'll talk over your video while you're playing that.
Yeah, that's fine. You can adjust volume coming from my computer at the same time. This is the
let's go take a look at the video that you did for this house.
I'm just gonna refeed this so it comes in fresh. This is the MP3D presentation on this house in Calabasas. So originally, when I delivered it to the client, this is my video, and then there's stills down here, and that was it. But I'll show you a little bit of the video. Whoops, I don't know if I checked that box as I signed in. Can you hear the audio?
Yeah, and you can make it full screen on the bottom right corner.
You can hear the audio though?
that's the house in the greater Los Angeles area, the Calabasas, in Calabasas, California. Kevin took on the challenge of shooting this 5,000 plus square foot, multi-million dollar home multiple times with Matterport 3D Tour, Geo CV 3D Tour, Nodalview 360 Tour, and Zillow 3D Home 360 Tour. And in addition, you also shot aerial. So why don't we start with your Matterport 3D tour? And so I think for many of us in the We Get Around Network Forum community, Kevin, go ahead and why don't you hit play there. So we're going to take a look at his Matterport 3D tour. Many of us are Matterport service providers. We're used to looking at a Matterport 3D tour. Kevin's giving us a walkthrough of it. Kevin, this is part of typically your bread and butter that you're offering 2D photos, video, Matterport, aerial. Any particular challenges in shooting this house with Matterport?
No, this is pretty straightforward. First of all, it's a one story, so it's quite easy to see the structure of the place here. It's got a large living room that's 2-story height, but the rest of the house is all single. Some of the rooms, like the master, have quite high ceilings, but it's there's a home built, I think, about 15, maybe 20 years ago in a neighborhood called the Oaks, which is a very upscale neighborhood, even as Calabasas goes. You can see the size of the kitchen. I mean, look at that center island. Yes, we shoot with wide angle lenses, but that center island is at least like 8 by 16 feet. Much too big to play.
Don't we all have an island that big in exactly. Our kitchen?
Yeah. I mean, you can see the size of the range over here compared to the size of the island. I mean, it's just gigantic. Anyway, yeah. It's a very, very, very upscale home, and so I just went through. It's pretty standard for anybody that does Matterport, except it's 5,000 square feet.
Let's take a look at the Geo CV 3D tour of this house.
One unusual feature is it does have a sort of an interior courtyard here. And this being Matterport, with the infrared issues, of course, it had to be shot when it was overcast. So going now to Geo. In Geo, I particularly chose this house because I wanted to try out this.
So this is, I know you said Geo, but this is actually Geo CV.
Yes, excuse me, Geo CV.
Geo CV tour that we're looking at. And I believe in this particular case, you're presenting the Geo CV tour within WP3D Model's WordPress plugin, and so
precisely
we'll see some other pieces that you're sharing here.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the Geo CV model, and you can see it's the coloring system kind of works out differently. The Geo camera I've found shoots cooler, whereas Matterport shoots warmer in terms of coloring. But I've also heard from Anton that that's something in the future that they may even make
and this is
adjustable.
Anton Yakobenko, who is the co-founder and CEO of Geo CV. So I think as you worked with these different platforms, you reached out to each of the companies to get a little bit of a faster, quick start. Given that you were working with 4 different systems, Matterport, you knew the front end and the back end, but
exactly
Geo CV, Zillow, Nodal View, I think you actually reached out for help to get a quick start.
I will say that for anybody who's done Matterport, it's very simple to learn to do Geo CV. The biggest difference is simply a mechanical one, that you're building, the camera itself runs on a Samsung camera, is built into part of the camera.
But this is a Samsung smartphone.
Yeah, smartphone.
Presently using version, I don't remember what version is, but in any, if you're watching, if you go to the We Get Around Network Forum and you search on GeoCV, there's an entire list of all the different components that make up the GeoCV kit that Kevin's referencing. I'd ask him to show the camera, but it is part of the WGAN 360 camera loaner program, and he's actually already sent it on to the next member that's on the waiting list.
Exactly. There are some, I took some pictures of the camera, which are on one of the threads that ran earlier. But anyway, but the camera, whereas Matterport is an entire closed box and you don't know what's going on inside, the GeoCV system is essentially a very high-tech rotator and tilter that uses a Samsung as the camera and a structure sensor as the infrared device, and they're amazingly put together so that they do it all automatically. And
do you want to?
It's very quick and easy.
Kevin, excuse me. Let's do this. Forgive me for interrupting. Let's keep walking through the tour, and then we'll take it off of screen share and still talk. So when you did your scanning, were there anything that was unusual or difficult using GeoCV?
The only real functional difference between Matterport and GeoCV is that with Matterport, you're setting up the camera and you're running it from an iPad. And so if you're not against the wall, I always just stay behind the Matterport camera as it rotates around so that I stay out of its view. If it's tied up against the wall or something where I can't hide behind it, then I'll go around a corner out of the picture, as we know. With GeoCV, the control, instead of the iPad, the control is the Samsung camera itself, which is built into the whole camera device. Therefore,
which is actually a Samsung smartphone. So I think part of what GeoCV is an open platform. With the first phone being a Samsung phone, wants to be able to have you be able to use your smartphone as part of the capture process, and to be able to reduce the cost of the camera, reduce the cost of the GeoCV kit, and also as we update our smartphones every year or two, that you're constantly updating essentially the camera for the GeoCV kit.
Exactly.
Before we take it off screen share, let's just take a little bit more. So this is different than Matterport. So we're looking at an icon, a little floor plan in the bottom left. It's a 3-dimensional map to give us orientation of where we are.
Yeah, the mini map does two things. You'll notice that as I turn around, the mini map turns around too, and there's a blue triangle sort of that splays out to show you the direction the camera is seeing. This can also be clicked up here. It can go to a flat version, which is just overhead, you see. And as you click through motions, you'll see it moves through.
Okay. But and then if you would take us through those 4 icons at the bottom.
All right. This is the little man we're all familiar with from Matterport, is the walkthrough mode. The little building here is the Dollhouse mode, as we know. The 4th one over here is the floor plan mode, which is kind of interesting. As opposed to Matterport, which gives you an overhead flat view like this.
Can you zoom in a little bit on that?
Yes, I can. In Geo's version, they create a black and white floor plan and synchronize and superimpose it right over the visual model, which is, you know, a very interesting presentation. I particularly, as simple as it is, I particularly like how it transitions. Mm-hmm. It's so artful that it rotates flat, and then the floor plan fades in on top of it.
Okay. And there's a 4th button, and there's some icons or thumbnails on the right side too.
Yeah, I'll get to the right side in just a moment. Okay. This 3rd button here, which is a tree, is outdoor view. And this is, to me, the biggest magic. This takes you outside the property with whoops, I hit the wrong button there, sorry. This takes you outside the property in 3D. I'll zoom back so that you can see the whole thing here. I chose this property because you can see there's an uphill and a downhill surrounding the property, but this is a complete rendering in accurate terrain of the area around the property. I was zooming out to see the whole thing. The area that I chose to scan. So you'll see as I go back and forth between this view and this view, that when the Dollhouse disappears and you go to the 3D terrain, it is positioned to exactly match where that inside is relative to the exterior 3D terrain. If I move this around to a different angle and then go exterior, you're seeing it from that angle. If I turn it around to the front of the house and go back to Dollhouse, you're seeing it then from that angle. So it gives you a lot of information to understand the property, particularly in the cases, you know, if somebody was shopping for a home from New York or Paris or London, you know, before they get on a plane, they can understand not only what the home is like to walk through, but they can see at least a piece of the terrain in the style of Google Maps 3D of how it sits on a hillside. And
now that's an aerial view that you shot.
Yes, this 3D view that you're seeing here is what was shot using my drone, and then all the still images. This can be done with a DJI product. It can be done with Ground Station Pro, which is a DJI program. I did it using Drone Deploy, which is another program. You basically, in both of these programs, you basically start with an overhead view, and you geofence the area that you want to cover, putting in certain terms of the overlap and the elevation and stuff like that. And when you hit the go button, your drone takes off and flies a grid over the entire property automatically. It's the first time you do it, it is really creepy because the thing just takes off, flies around. If the grid is big enough that it needs a second battery, it stops, automatically lands where it takes off. You change the battery, it takes off and finishes the rest of the route. And that gives you the basic information to create the 3D terrain. But in addition to that, in order to come up with this, you have to do additional manual flying around the property itself. Basically, kind of like coming down to this point and flying the drone around and taking pictures of the outside all the way around. And I also did like this inner courtyard. And all of these pictures, there's a methodology to how they're shot, which caused me to have to go back and redo it the first time I tried. But once you get it, all those still pictures, GeoCV runs through a photogrammetry program, and it builds this entire model. And then GeoCV has the means to match it up with the interior like this. And for me, if it was an average house in, you know, a tract neighborhood, probably wouldn't be worth the time and cost and effort to do this sort of thing. But with you know, properties like this, it's a pretty magical way to show the situation a house is in. Anyway, so that's
those
GeoCV.
and those four thumbnails on the right.
Yes, these are additional aerial panoramas that I shot from the drone. Most drones nowadays can do this. And so I shot aerial panos, saved the still images as individual images. Anton's system, it's important that aerial panos are not automatically stitched by the DJI software. He needs them as the separate panos. And I, you know, did that from 4 different positions. This is from the front of the house, from furthest away, you know, so that someone who's curious where the terrain goes beyond the borders of that exterior model view that the tree shows, these give you the rest of the story.
That's cool. And before you go on, I know you have a surprise of something that you just got today to show
Yeah.
us. But if you don't mind, could you relaunch the WP3D models view?
Of this one? Yes.
Yeah, and I'll talk over it about why I'm asking you to do that.
Sure.
Um,
Okay, here it is.
okay, so notice that there's no Geo CV logo here. The home3d.us logo that's inserted in that black bar is with WP3D models,
And this is in Geo.
and Kevin's logo in the top left corner,
And also down here.
and also down there, that's in Geo CV. And notice that this is a white label version of Geo CV that lets the photographer insert either his or her logo or client's logo. Now, if you could launch the tour with your play button there, just one other thing I wanted to point out here. If we go take a look, in the, let's say the bottom right, you can see the overlay with Kevin's logo right there. And then Kevin, if you could click on your logo.
You mean up here?
No, the one on the bottom.
Oh, I'm sorry. I messed it up there. Okay, back. One on the bottom. Here?
Yep.
I don't think that, does that do, I've never even done that.
Yes, this actually launches this launches your website.
Yeah.
And I wanted to show that because I thought that was a pretty cool feature of the white label version of Geo CV, that not only you as a photographer can insert your logo, you can have your logo link to your website. And then if we could go back to the tour and then just click on the top left logo, we'll see that that's perhaps similar to Matterport, where you have the some property description, info, phone.
And typically, of course, this would be used to credit to the agent, not myself. But this particular WP3D is set up for my company.
Okay, so I just wanted to kind of maybe give props to Geo CV, as I think they've been listening really hard over the years in the We Get Around Network forum. That's been such a pain point for Matterport service providers to all the time, energy, and effort to go out and make a sale, to get a 3D tour, only to have the Matterport logo show up on our tours, and perhaps our clients say, oh, that's how you did that. Oh, maybe I can do that myself, or maybe I can start asking others for quotes after we've done the heavy lifting of business development. So
exactly.
Is there anything you wanted to add on that topic?
No, the other thing, this is to not confuse other things before we get on to Nodal View and others. This is probably a good point to show something that this is highly experimental. This is not for regular, but these dots up here show the positions of those aerial panos that I showed you in the other page. These 4 panos in this experimental layout have been positioned aerially relative to that 3D model.
And what happens when you click on them?
Well, I think you go there like that, and the excuse me, like here's the panel that's in front of the house. You click it, and it takes you there, which is even more magical, particularly when you have aerial panos that show the entire visible terrain to the horizon.
So I think what we're looking at here in Geo CV is a 3D tour, an aerial 3D tour.
Exactly.
Where the content that you shot is now, the aerial content that you shot is actually in 3D.
Ooh.
Based on those points being positioned.
Yeah.
I think if I was to make a parallel to Matterport, I would say Matterport enables you to shoot a 360 view, an exterior 360 on the ground, and then position it on where it should show up in relationship to the property.
Yeah.
I think Geo CV is taking it really to the next level.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I find this pretty magical in terms of the promotion of high-end properties.
Yeah. All right. So
anyway,
before we move, so let's take it off screen share for a moment, if you would. And uh, um, I love seeing you on your like out of this world on your set there, Kevin.
Well, that's my logo there, the Earth.
It's the Earth. It's good to see you like you're like in outer space. I guess the Earth is behind you. So we've now taken a look at two different 3D tours that you shot: Matterport versus Geo CV.
Yeah.
What are your initial thoughts comparing the two?
It's very interesting. Matterport, of course, has Matterport is really established. They have waved the flag for 3D tours and really pushed the limits. And I have tremendous respect for what the company has done, particularly considering this. They began 4 or 5 years ago doing this. So this is just a huge thing. And let's face it, many of us, if not most of us, on the WGAN Forum are Matterport photographers, among other things, and we are on this forum because of Matterport. Now the technology is expanding. There are other companies pushing the limits. Needless to say, like most MSPs, I'm disappointed that Matterport has made some of their marketing choices to push for agents. And I personally know a very high-end agent who has made millions of dollars in the business and jumped on and bought a Matterport camera, and it sits in a closet unused. They could use it anytime they wanted to, but most agents, from my experience, have no interest in technology. They just, they do what they do. They have the relationships, they nurture clients, and they get listings. And they'll, that's where their money is in listings and the commissions that they earn. So I think Matterport, I fear Matterport has offended a lot of MSPs because of their move to try to push cameras and get agents to do this themselves instead of hiring professionals. And I don't think they'll ever succeed. I jumped on 2 years ago when Zillow started doing their Zillow videos. I jumped on doing that because it was a way to give a boost on Zillow to my clients' listings. And as simple as those are to do, just with a smartphone, very few agents have ever bothered to do it. And most of them, if they have tried, they look horrible. So if they can't even get their heads around something as simple as a Zillow video that you can shoot in 10 minutes, they're not going to devote themselves to Matterport or Geo or Nodal View or any of these processes.
Let me ask my question a little bit differently, because I know you and I could literally talk for hours and hours and hours. So,
unfortunately, yes.
Fortunately, I always enjoy visiting with you. How about we just talk about the Matterport 3D tour versus the Geo CV 3D tour? What are your impressions as a professional photographer on the two different viewing experiences?
Yeah, let me make one short comment about the shooting experience. For those curious, I found that the time it takes to shoot a Matterport of a 5,000 square foot home was virtually identical to the time it took to shoot Geo CV in the same home. And I was comparing apples with apples in this case. So in terms of the time it took to shoot, the time it took to mark up with trimming and mirrors and windows and so forth, identical, really no difference. The time it took to upload and get a processed space back, about the same. They work internally a bit differently, which you understand innately when you work with the Geo camera, but the experience to us as photographers is the same. The capabilities are somewhat different. Matterport is, as is easy to understand, Matterport is a more advanced system in the sense that It has a showcase tour that you can program, which I usually do for my clients. So you click once and it takes you through the house in an automated fashion. I've been told Geo is working on that, but it's not operational yet. Right now, Geo is a manual moving through the home. They both have, and correct me if I'm wrong because I haven't done this yet, Dan, on Geo, but I believe that Geo has a tagging system as well to mark things. I don't know whether they have Geo tags yet, like Matter tags. There again, that's probably something that will come onto the system. And as you've commented in the forum before, Anton, it's amazing how fast Geo CV is developing new features. This indoor-outdoor aspect of Geo CV is what really sets it apart for me, because that's something that Matterport can't remotely do. With Matterport, you can go out in the yard and shoot panos and then place them on the map. As I wrote on the forum, I think it was yesterday, set up some screens of how you do that for those who haven't. But that can only be done internal. It can only be done with the Matterport camera, which means you're not going to fly it on a drone. Therefore, you can't add aerial panos, at least currently, to the Matterport presentation. It's somewhat more limited in that capability. They are the same. This is something we just should openly quick get out there. These two processes, Matterport and Geo CV, are the same in that they use infrared for measuring the world. And as a result, the problems that Matterport has dealing with direct sunlight are identical on Geo CV. Matterport, of course, has taken a stab at extending and improving that by launching the Cortex system that can work with an Insta360, I believe, or a Theta V camera, so that, for example, if you're shooting in a living room and there's a lot of direct sunlight coming in and burning a hole in the floor, essentially in the Dollhouse view, you could set up the Theta V camera, take a couple panos there using Capture 3 on Matterport, and that will fill in those holes because through Cortex, because it's not using infrared. Likewise, you can take, I've tried taking the Theta V outdoors into the yard and doing shots and letting it work in sunlight, and through Cortex, piecing together parts of the yard. There are still significant limitations to that. You can't come close to doing what you can do with Geo CV with the drone work, but you can go out into sunlight, and I'm sure their system will continue to get, the Cortex will continue to get better and better at visually, through machine learning, lining up, performing alignment on scans taken with Theta V and other 360 cameras, so that you can build further outdoors into sunlight. But
okay, so if you're a Matterport service provider, or you're not, but you're thinking about getting Geo CV, the same issues about shooting outdoors that apply to Matterport apply to Geo CV. Matterport has addressed it in one part by enabling this artificial intelligence in order to add, I don't know what you would call it, data for that challenge. I think what I'm hearing, though, is a professional photographer that does aerial as well. You're really excited about Geo CV because it enables you to completely differentiate yourself from anyone else.
Absolutely.
You can add aerial 3D to your Geo CV 3D tour.
Yeah, particularly, first of all, the shooting of the exterior aerial work for the Geo CV indoor-outdoor system is more challenging because you're having to essentially, it takes a real spatial awareness to know where to fly the drone so that those will connect through the photogrammetry software. it's a little less automatic.
But I think what you probably learned there is there's some learning curve in terms of shooting the aerial, and it may be that when you do your first or second or third, you may have some problems, and you're going to have to master it just like anything else.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, is there somebody there that you want to have on the show? I notice you're looking off to the side there. Is there something?
No. I'm just my mind's wandering.
Okay. I'm just
not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
Okay. I know we're going to take a look at the back end of Geo CV dashboard, but I thought before we do that, maybe we move on and take a look at Nodal View.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. We take they'll be quicker to, let's see, I should go back to my share, right? I'm going to go share. So
incidentally, while Kevin is doing this, he actually borrowed from the We Get Around network, the WGAN 360 camera loaner program, 3 different solutions. He borrowed the Geo CV kit, he borrowed the Nodal View kit, and he borrowed a Ricoh Theta V. And later in the show, I'll tell you how you can borrow these 3 and other 360 camera solutions from the We Get Around network loaner library. Kevin, where are we? We're in a Nodal View now?
Yeah, I'm going to give a quick view to Nodal View and Zillow 3D Home, just so that you see what they are. These are 2 programs, processes, which are very, compared to Matterport and Geo CV, they're both very fast to shoot, fairly quick to post edit on your desktop. And they create walkthroughs. There's no Dollhouse. They create just something more akin to Google Street View. This one is Nodal View. You can see here I can move to different places. I can move out onto the portico, out onto the patio, further out onto the patio. Let's go out to the pool. And they're creating transitions between spherical panos. And interestingly, I'm trying to remember. I don't have them all connected here. You can on Nodal View, you can also connect aerial panos, and I think this model. I'm trying to see if they're on here. No, the aerial panos aren't here. I will be getting them added to this, but aerial panos such as were built into the Geo CV, those 4 views that were up in the sky, can be added to this, so that, for example, I could spin around here and there can be an arrow pointing out here up into the sky, and then you can go out to a pano there and look down on the whole place, which is pretty nice. This is a system that you shoot this process with your own smartphone.
But can you come off of screen share just for a second?
Sure.
Just for a second. And I thought I'd hold up.
Oh, that's great.
Okay, so this is what Kevin was shooting with, or something similar. It happens to be, this is my iPhone 10 XR. There's a special case that comes from Nodal View. There's a fisheye lens that comes from Nodal View. There's an arm back here that connects the camera, my iPhone, to the Nodal View rotator. And so this piece here, Kevin aligned the lens over the nodal point here in order to create the 360s. And then this piece here is the Nodal View rotator. So aside from my iPhone, this is $250 in gear. That's all that is, not including the tripod or the tripod that I have this on. And that's what Kevin was using to shoot. Okay, thank you, Kevin.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to you. And incidentally, that right here, this is the Nodal View app that's used to shoot it.
We go back here.
Okay.
One of the things that I have to call out and wave the flag so everybody notices this. So this is shot on my iPhone 8 in my case, and you set it up on the Nodal View rotator. and the control is the screen of your iPhone, and I tap go, and it connects by Bluetooth to the rotator. So you tap go on the phone, it signals the rotator to spin around, and it does 8 positions rotating around. We all know Matterport stops in 6 positions going around. Geo CV and Nodal View stop in 8 positions as they go around. And it takes 8 vertically rectangular panos. So it basically shoots that 45, 45, 45, 45 all the way around until it has done the whole circle.
And if you stop right there on the outdoor, because actually
Exactly.
when it stops, it can take up to 5 images.
Yes.
Each stop. So in theory, it could be 8 times 5 or 40 images in order to do the HDR within the app. And I think what will happen is as we walk through Kevin's tour, we're likely to see presumably the light inside and outside looks great. And I know when I've shot with Nodal View, I've never had any stitching errors. Did you experience any stitching
errors? The stitching is flawless, and the HDR for an automatic process is it's awesome. It's just outstanding. When I show you the Zillow 3D home, you'll see by comparison. But here we're inside a house, and you can see outside. You can see detail outside. You can see even the distant hills and a little bit of blue in the sky way off there. As we go outside, here's in the portico. It's quite shady in here compared to the sunlight out here, and yet it's all put it together. Out here, it's direct sun by the pool, and yet look at how nicely balanced this is all around. And that's done internally by Geo CV's processor.
This is Nodal View. Nodal View.
That's I'm sorry, Nodal View. Thank you. This is Nodal View's putting this together. The HDR is just outstanding. You can see how much brighter it gets as you go inside. And looking out windows, there's windows in the kitchen. Let's see over here.
Yeah, I found it awesome when I've shot with it that the quality of that outside view within a 360 shot with a smartphone, amazing.
Yeah.
To me, that's
amazing. Yeah. I'll jump over for a moment to Zillow 3D Home. This is what comes up when you first.
And I'd like to just take a moment here and say Zillow 3D Home for me is a little bit of a misnomer because it's really a 360 tour.
Right.
So this whole space is really kind of confusing to begin with. And unfortunately, I think Zillow chose Zillow 3D Home is really a misnomer. It's in my opinion, it's really Zillow 360 tour.
Exactly. I'm going to take
Zillow 3D tour sounds like it's like Matterport 3D tour or Geo CV 3D tour, and that's not the case at all.
So here's Nodal Views. I tried in many cases to put the camera in the exact same position when shooting Nodal View and Zillow 3D Home, or shall we call it 360 Home?
We'll call it Zillow 3D Home, but I think it's important to point out that it really is 360. It's not 3D.
So this is shot not with an iPhone, but this is shot with the Theta V.
This is the Ricoh Theta V.
Right. Okay. And here's how the Zillow image came out, and here's how Nodal View came out. So as you see, not much comparison.
Now, Kevin, when you shot, did you have the Ricoh Theta V on the HDR setting?
I honestly am not sure whether I did.
Okay. Let's go back and take another look at it for a second. This would be something to explore because I'm going to guess, unfortunately, the Ricoh Theta V setting was not on HDR, or that Zillow doesn't support that. I'd be surprised. I would imagine that Zillow 3D Home would actually support Ricoh Theta V HDR, and I actually think you could have gotten a better image here than what we're actually seeing. So
yeah, I think you may be correct, and I have shot other things with the Theta V definitely in HDR. However, I would say from what I have done, it does not, the Theta V on HDR setting is not as good as what the Nodal View process does.
Yeah, the quality of the two images are going to be totally different. And in my opinion, Nodal View wins hands down versus the quality of a Ricoh Theta V. Maybe that'll change with the recently announced Ricoh Theta Z1. But if you're looking for sharp, great color, you really are looking at Nodal View.
Yeah.
And I want to say you were new to the Ricoh Theta V. You borrowed that from our
Yes.
library as well. So,
Exactly.
I mean, you've been pretty overwhelmed trying to learn 3 different front ends and 3 different back ends, and
True.
we'll do that in a timely fashion while the house was still available for sale and the homeowner was still allowing you to come into the house.
You can see the dramatic difference in resolution between the Theta V. Likewise, the Theta Z may change that completely, but the iPhone on Nodal View puts together a great deal more definition than.
Yeah. And I should point out that the Nodal View kit supports virtually any smartphone, whether it's Android or iPhone, whatever version of phone you have, they ship you the case for your smartphone so that 360 camera, the 360 fisheye lens just gets screwed into the case. It's not clip-on and it's not going anywhere. All right, so pretty big difference in terms of the viewing experience. How about coming off screen sharing there?
Oh. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Incoming call.
Okay. Let's take it off screen share if you don't mind.
Yep.
And what's your overall gut feel in terms of the viewing experience of Matterport versus Geo CV versus Nodal View versus Zillow 3D Home?
The way I've come out of this process is over here we have Matterport and Geo CV. Over here we have the Zillow 3D Home and Nodal View. I view them as 2 separate categories of product. The ones that have Dollhouse take significantly more time to shoot, a bit more time to post-process and set up, but they give you the Dollhouse and a very smooth, lifelike walkthrough experience. Both the Zillow and the Zillow and Nodal View give you a 360 camera walkthrough process, and they do it rather very similarly in terms of the user end experience. Although I think the Nodal View looks much better. They both create markers. In the case of Nodal View, they produce little arrows that are floating in space. In 3D Home, you get little circles at the bottom of the screen, which move as you rotate around and identify whether you're going to the kitchen or the bathroom or whatever. So they work very similarly. And I'd say the time that takes to shoot those 2 processes is very similar as well. One thing that is impressive about Zillow's 3D Home, thus far in my experiments, I've done 4 or 5 properties. As you shoot Zillow 3D Home, you simply move through the house. You don't. You do type out, there's the pre-built list, and you can also manually, like living room, bedroom, kitchen, etc. And there's an option to name something. If you have a pantry is not on the list, you can type it out and put it on there. So as you shoot each 360 node on the Zillow product, you name it. But there's no connection process whatsoever. Those 360s don't know where they are with respect to another. There's nothing you've done to instruct. You upload them all to Zillow and it comes back to you. And in my experience, amazingly, about 3/4 of the connections have been made automatically just through machine vision, recognizing bits of rooms seen through doorways from other rooms, which it's one thing for Matterport or GeoCV, you're scanning about every 6 to 8 feet. So there's a lot of overlap in the imagery if that kind of process was being used to assemble. But in the case of 3D home, you got one picture over here in the kitchen and another one in the family room, and maybe there's just a little doorway in between. Almost nothing shows through that doorway, and yet the machine vision that Zillow has employed in this thing finds the connection, knows the direction to look, and actually puts the arrows in there. And I have found that when I've shot the process, about 3/4 of the connections are correct coming out. Nodal View has a process where, let's say you scan the kitchen first, and then you go into the family room. They ask you to set up the camera so that when you hit the start button, shooting the family room, it is aimed toward the last position in the kitchen. So you're telling it where to look to find the connections. And as you are able to do that, it puts some of the connections together automatically. I find that a greater proportion of them must be put in manually in the edit. It's quite easy to do. As a matter of fact, it's almost fun. Going through and making the corrections and showing it where to point to put the arrow and deciding where the arrow goes and so forth. But it is, at least at this particular stage of the game, not as automated as the Zillow product is. Nevertheless, weighing the two, I mean, I would, as a photographer, of course, I would go for Nodal View, hands down over the Zillow product, because the HDR is so fantastic. And the fact that I can add external aerial panos as well to the program, so that you can, any panos you have that can fit, you could have a pano, inside the hot tub, and stick it in there, even if you couldn't put the Nodal View rotator in there. If you have some way to get the pano, you can just upload it. You can take a pano on your iPhone by hand, from a drone, whatever. You can manually upload. And I can show you the interface that allows you that.
So why shoot Zillow 3D Home if you so love Nodal View?
Well, Zillow has one thing going for it, and that's they have the eyeballs. Zillow, when Zillow launched Zillow Videos 2 years ago, anybody who made a Zillow video through their little app and uploaded it, they gave a boost to that listing. And it used to be that boost would last for quite a long time. I mean, it could boost your listing for months if you did a search just by city name or zip code. Because that search boost is overridden if somebody puts in 3-bedroom, 2-bath, that kind of descriptor, then it doesn't apply. But if you go just by zip code or neighborhood or something, you get this great boost. That boost has been downgraded significantly now. They give you a boost for maybe 3 weeks when the listing first goes up, and then after that it's down. But
if I want a virtual tour to be on Zillow, I need to shoot it with the Zillow 3D.
Yeah, if you want right now, well, first of all, right now it hasn't even launched nationwide.
I think we're in, as today's Thursday, March 21st, 2019. I believe it's in 11 markets today. Yeah. I could give or take some, with the intent of rolling out nationwide. I would expect by the end of 2019 that Zillow 3D Home would be available in all markets.
Right.
Just a kind of a note for photographers, it's available today that you can go shoot it. If you're in a market that it's not offered, it's still offered on the Zillow 3D Home app. You can go still play with it. You can still shoot with it. You can learn how to use it today. You just can't have it attached to a Zillow listing.
Right. We probably all know that in Zillow, if a listing has a video, there's a little button that shows up, a little black rectangle that says video. There's a new black button on the other lower corner that says 3D Home. And if in those markets where it's active, like Atlanta, San Diego, if you do a 3D Home and you submit it to Zillow, then it shows up there right in that main picture window. Right now, you can put a Matterport or Geo CV or anything you want onto Zillow, but it appears way down the screen. There's a tab, there's a text place that says other interior features, and under that there's a link that says something like view virtual tour or something like that. And anything can go in there. It can be a video, it can be, well, video's in the tab, but any of these processes can be put down there. But it's such an afterthought to the presentation, and it's so far away from all the other visual elements that probably nobody ever clicks that tab and looks at anything. But right now, that's where you can put other types of tours. When they go live, what I've heard is that only 3D home Zillow walkthroughs will go into that tab that says 3D home. So that is the reason to be able to do 3D home. If you've got a client that really wants the bump, and I've been repeatedly told that the use of 3D home is going to give you a bump in search as well. If you use both Zillow Video and 3D home, you're going to get a double bump. That's what I've been told. We don't know this yet because it's not active here in Los Angeles. But another thing interesting for people to understand, not only, as you said, Dan, can photographers right now shoot with 3D home and experiment with it and learn how to do it so that you're kind of ready and so forth. But both now and after it's activated, Zillow has said that this process, unlike Zillow videos, will be open, in that when you build a 3D home walkthrough, you can then, you could take that and put it on realtor.com. You could put it on Redfin in principle, if Redfin will let you, but you could put it on your own website. You can put it on the MLS. You can put that anywhere.
I think this is a very smart move by Zillow.
Absolutely.
As photographers, we want to shoot a space once. We don't want to shoot a space twice. And if we can shoot it with Zillow, or 4 times, we don't want to shoot a space 4 times. Unless you're Kevin Dole and you had a moment of insanity.
Yes.
But thankfully for the rest of us, your moment of insanity is tremendously helpful for us. So we do appreciate.
I hope so.
Yes. But thankfully, Zillow has taken the position with Zillow 3D Home, unlike Zillow Video, that once you create the tour and it lives in the Zillow 3D Home cloud, you can then use iframe to share or a link to share that tour anywhere. Thank heavens. I don't believe that they let you export the 360 rectangular. No,
and they don't let you import other panels, such as aerial panels or something.
Yeah, which is really a huge plus for Nodal View, which lets you export your 360s. It also lets you import 360s, whether it's aerial or just other shots. So so it's a little bit of this, I think I'll do a little editorial here just for a moment, Kevin, and
please
chime in, because I have to think that you think the same way on this topic. Is particularly after you've shot Geo CV, you're kind of scratching your head and you go, if I use the Geo CV kit, I can publish to the Geo CV platform, but I would imagine that same content could be published to Matterport. I would imagine that if I wanted to be able to publish to Nodal View for some reason, all the Geo CV assets are yours that you can download, and you could have imported them into Nodal View if you wanted that kind of tour. But I think maybe even more importantly is that, well, if I shot in Geo CV and I got this 3D tour and home and Zillow 3D Home is a 360 tour, certainly one would think that I'd be able at some point to be able to use Geo CV 3D tour to publish to Zillow 3D Home, even though I'd consider that a a downward migration because I'd be
Right.
going from
Sure.
3D to 360, but I
Right.
don't think that's anything different than shooting Matterport in 3D and having it go off to Google Street View as a 360 tour.
Yeah. Very interesting. I hadn't thought of
So
that, but very interesting. Yeah.
so in kind of in my view, you know, if for all those companies that are cameras, I want to be able to use any I want to have that camera be able to publish to work seamlessly with Zillow 3D Home, with Nodal View, with Matterport, with Geo CV. I want to be able to have any platform that I can be able to publish to from another platform, as long as that other platform provides the other platform what they need. So meaning to me, it seems like a no-brainer for GeoCV to be able to publish to Matterport. And if your Matterport would just open their platform and is now accepting and now enabling the use of Insta360 1X and a Rico Theta V, and presumably the Rico Theta Z1 that comes out scheduled for April 11th, 2019. Anyway, I'm getting lost in all my minutiae here, but that you should be with any camera published to any platform, with any platform published to any camera. And I think when we were looking at you demonstrating Zillow 3D Home and Nodal View, those two platforms seem like they're identical, except the quality of the Nodal View imagery is far superior than Zillow 3D Home. So
Yeah.
I'd like to think, hopefully, at some point, the Nodal View people are talking to the Zillow people, or the Zillow people are, you know, watching the show and say, wow, you know, the quality of what Kevin, same home,
Yep.
nearly the same spots of shooting the images, the quality of the photography was way better using a Nodal View solution.
Right.
You should be able to shoot a Zillow 3D home using the Nodal View platform and end up, and that Zillow should be happy because they get a better quality
Right.
result. And what they care about is having, you know, my understanding is Zillow's mission is to have a Zillow 3D home, what I would call a 360 tour of every listing.
Right.
And who cares if it's shot with the Zillow 3D Home app, or it's shot with Geo CV, or it's shot with Matterport, or it's shot with Nodal View, or yet some other platform. Anyway, my little editorial insert. Do you disagree with any of that? I have to think you were totally.
No, I do agree completely. And in Zillow's in the few announcements they've had about the beta release of 3D Home, so forth, they have always emphasized the idea of democratizing 3D walkthroughs. They recognize without really giving accolades to somebody else, but they recognize with Matterport and other processes that's a fabulous presentation. But they also know that there's time, effort, therefore cost involved. And for average small homes, a lot of people are never going to do a Matterport. As fast as it is, and as
totally fine.
Yeah,
totally fine. But whether I'm shooting Matterport 3D tour or Geo CV 3D tour, I should be able to export to Zillow 3D Home, notwithstanding maybe some issues about Matterport having or let's say it differently, News Corp, the parent company of Realtor.com, having equity in Matterport. I could imagine that there's a little bit of kerfuffle at a corporate level to say, well, we don't want to, we're Zillow, we don't want to support News Corp's Realtor.com. And well, hopefully at some point everybody gets over this and starts thinking about the customer and what does the customer want. And if enabling Matterport to publish to Zillow 3D Home is going to create a better Zillow experience, then that should be what governs it, not the politics of who owns stock in which company.
Right.
But if Matterport and Zillow can't figure it out, then, certainly maybe Matterport and Geo CV are a little bit of rivals today.
Yeah.
And, maybe Zillow will take a hint from today's program and go, wow, look at the quality of what Kevin just shot. Looks like Matterport. Maybe the quality, fidelity might have even been better. And we should work with Geo CV to publish to Zillow 3D Home. We should work
Yeah.
with Nodal View to
Yeah.
publish to Zillow 3D Home. And if they want to carve out everybody but Matterport, okay, I think they should, everybody should play nice. And as you and I, as photographers, all we know is we want to shoot the house once, and
Yeah.
we want to use the right tool for the right house. So if you're
Yeah.
shooting a multi-million-dollar home that has an infinity pool overlooking this vast canyon in Calabasas, then you may make a choice to say, I want Geo CV because it's going to allow me to do a 3D aerial
Right.
on top of everything else. And if you're shooting a $250,000 listing and there's not much money there from the agent, you may want to be in and out with Nodal View or in and out with Zillow 3D Home, where you just had to shoot, the living room, the dining
Yeah.
room, the bedroom, one outside the front door, the back door, a couple bedrooms, and call it a day. And
Yep.
presumably you're in and out of the house in a half hour or less.
Yeah.
In fact, we didn't talk about timing. How do you have any sense of how long it took you to do Nodal View and Zillow
Yeah.
3D Home?
The time to shoot each of those processes was almost identical as well. I spent a little bit more time in post on Nodal View because it made fewer of the room-to-room arrow connections automatically. I imagine that's something that Nodal View is aware of and is working on to improve. But it's a fairly quick process anyway. And as I said, almost kind of fun to do. Go to the room and put the arrows in place. So to me, it wasn't a big factor. It was the little extra time that Nodal View took was a tiny trade-off for the much better visual quality and the ability to add aerial panels. To me, I view, we've got Matterport and GeoCV, we've got 3D Home and Nodal View over here. These are all great processes for residential real estate. These are the high-end property processes. Ideally, every process, but it depends upon what the agent values here. But these are the high-end processes, and the other two are essentially for any property. I will, going forward, any job where I'm asked to do still photos, even just still photos, I will do my best to convince the person that they ought to add a Nodal View walkthrough. Right now in Los Angeles, there's no advantage to doing no advantage at all to doing Zillow over Nodal View because it's the 3D Home is not active here, so you don't even get a listing boost, and you can't show it in any way that you can't show Nodal View. So I would definitely push for Nodal View, and if Nodal View itself is quick enough to shoot that on a lot of homes, and of course, the smaller the home, the fewer the pictures. You're in a 1,200 square foot home, you take 8 pictures. It takes almost nothing. And the smaller the home, the more those connections will build themselves quickly. So I will try to make Nodal View an add-on to any, if I'm shooting a 1,000 square foot condo or if I'm shooting a 5,000 square foot home, but the person doesn't want to do doesn't want to pop for the cost of Matterport or GeoCV. I think that we as photographers ought to be armed with either Matterport and GeoCV in addition to one of the others, so that you can. And I think Nodal View has a huge edge over 3D Home right now. That's just part of the arsenal. If a client loves the Dollhouse view and the smooth walkthrough experience of the high-end product, great, do it. But if they don't, the walkthrough is that the Nodal View produces is so good. I'll show it to people. I show it to people on an iPad and it says, for very little extra, I can do this too. And oh, really? Great. That's fantastic. So that you have those two tools. You got a big gun and a small gun.
Yeah, I would be tempted to do the following. Tell me if this makes any sense. Is to say clients engaged you to do traditional 2D images. Just shoot Nodal View anyway for that agent the first time, and say, hey, I just wanted to gift you this now to make it really confusing, this home3d.us tour. We don't need to call it Nodal View. We're just going to call it, your company, and that you just given it to them at no charge, and then say, oh, by the way, if you'd like to do this on your future listings, here's what I charge. Right. And the reason I say that is because when you shoot with Nodal View, you literally can do one. The equivalent would be a Matterport scan. You can do one 360 in the middle of the living room, in the middle of the kitchen.
One in each room.
One in each room. Let's call it 10, 15 at most, right? The house you shot with 5,000 plus square feet, it's a little bit different. But in a 2,500, in the house where they're going to only engage you for traditional photos, that it's probably a smaller property anyway. It doesn't have a large budget, and you can go shoot a handful of the 360 images with Nodal View and not feel like you spent the same amount of time doing it gratis for Matterport. Does that make any sense?
It does indeed, and I've done that. And we need to keep in mind because I always go back to the Matterport perspective, because those of us on the forum are principally Matterport photographers for several years.
Incidentally, if you all are watching us on our YouTube channel, we keep referring to the forum. It's the We Get Around Network Forum. You can enter WGAN-Forum.com as a short way to get to us, WGAN-Forum.com. Forgive me, Kevin. You were talking about maybe gratis shooting a Nodal View the first time that an agent engages you for 2D pictures, in order to let them sample and then make a decision about going forward. It's not costing you a lot of time or effort.
No, it doesn't at all. And I can, matter of fact, the first Nodal View the first 3D home I shot was exactly that. I just did it for someone just to try it out and do it. I can share that listing. The other thing is that both of these simpler processes, faster processes, you also go out in the backyard, go out in the front yard and shoot a couple panos, because unlike Matterport and Geo, they're ground-based cameras, that you don't need infrared. You can just go outside and take a 360. If there's a pool or a barbecue or a patio or something, just add those to part of the walkthrough so people can actually move around the entire property.
Before we move on to post-production, did you do any 2D photos from the Nodal View?
2D? No, I didn't.
Okay, so let me talk a little bit about this, just so we have because not everyone that watches this show is necessarily a professional photographer. They're looking at Matterport and going, oh, with Matterport, I can export 2D pictures, and that lets me shoot a Matterport tour, lets me get, and also lets me get traditional photos. Okay, we all may disagree whether that makes sense or not. Being a professional photographer offering quality imagery, but I want to let you know that on Nodal View they have two different solutions. In the kit comes a 360 fisheye lens, but also comes a wide angle lens. Now I tried shooting both wide angle and 360 with Nodal View, and what I actually found, Kevin, was that I preferred to shoot the. I'm hearing some ambient noise. You hearing anything?
Little bit, yeah. I think my wife walked through the background.
Okay, all right. You got to take her out to dinner more often, Kevin. When you land from outer space, be sure to take her out to dinner so that she's not walking through the space capsule on you.
Okay.
All right. So anyway, the point is I shot Nodal View both with a wide angle lens and Nodal View with the fisheye lens. And when I shot it with the fisheye lens, there's a feature for letting you export traditional wide angle pictures.
Huh.
And I found that those pictures were exceptional. And what I've started to do using the Nodal View is after I get done shooting how I would shoot my 360s at whatever height that I'm doing that, I then go stand in the very corner of the room with the 360 camera right up, close to me. And I put the height of the camera of where I think it would need to be if I was shooting with my DSLR camera. And I just stand there and I just stand still so that I let those 360 stitch, and the camera rotates around. It takes a 360. I don't use that 360 as part of the 360 tour, but what I do is go into the back end of Nodal View, and then I can then frame the exact wide angle shot that I want and export it. And the quality is actually exceptional. It's doing this HDR thing. And so just from a workflow standpoint, I think a lot of photographers would actually say, well, I'm shooting a $250,000 property. Maybe this is fine. Now, it's probably easier for you to get in and out of a space with your DSLR camera in your workflow, and you're geared up for that. But somebody who's not a photographer and they're looking at, do I get Matterport? Do I get Nodal View? Maybe they're not going to buy both. You're talking about, as a professional photographer, having both solutions. Maybe they're saying, maybe I can only pick one. I'm learning about Matterport. I'm learning about Geo CV. I'm learning about Nodal View, and I'm learning about Zillow 3D Home. And the point is with the Nodal View, shooting a 360, that after you get done shooting your tour, you could just be in the corners of the room, shoot your 360s, and then in the back end, when you get home, export the exact right 2D image. Anyway, I'd encourage you to try it. It's pretty good. Anyway, and enough of that. How about could you take us into the back end of Geo CV and Nodal View? And so we
go back to sharing here.
Okay. Do we want to make an assumption that our audience knows what? I tell you what. Let's make the assumption that you're already a Matterport service provider. You're already using Matterport Workshop. You know what that looks like. If you don't know what that looks like, go to the We Get Around Network forum and go under our training videos, and you'll see a 2-hour video, and you can watch Matterport Workshop for newbies, and you can see everything you want on the back end. So right now, Kevin has taken us into the back end of Matterport. Maybe you won't spend too much time here, but then you'll go off to the other platforms.
So I just want to just refresh everybody's image. Matterport 3D background, the showcase. We know how to launch Workshop up over here, which takes you into the guts of the thing. This is details where you set information and how you upload there. This of course, this automatic uploading to these two sites is something that Matterport has, but no one else has. Essentially, Zillow 3D Home will have that when they go active nationwide, but not yet. And we have floor plans and other things here. So we know this process pretty well, I'm going to assume, for most people. Geo's equivalent is this desktop. This is, you can see I'm logged in here. There's a tab with different there's a variety of tabs down the side here. I'm only somewhat versed in this because I haven't really dug in deep yet. You can see the 4 panos, the aerial panos that were constructed on this particular thing are appearing up here, the 360 panos. So there's different controls that you can turn on and off with thing. This is like whether you want the mini map to appear or not on the build when you process. I'm actually not familiar with this yet, but there's obviously Panoramas visibility, so I'm not sure how that works. Sorry, we wouldn't have time to go through it all anyway. Sharing, we have white labeling here, your own logo, which appears. This appears on the login page. This logo here, I'll show you where it appears. I actually need to update mine. It appears when you first when you first click on a space, it's going to reload now. As I click this to launch the Geo CV, you'll see it actually appears down here underneath that progress bar.
Yeah.
And I need to reverse out the letters white instead of black so it will show up. But anyway, that's where that appears. The logo up here, the circular logo, was something that was sent to Geo CV, and they put it on into your account on the back end. You can see company name here. That's what appears down here in the corner. It says captured by Home 3D. Website link. So if you click on that, as Dan had me do, it goes to that website. The white labeling process. Info block. This, of course, is the block that comes out from the side. Where is it now? when we were doing that, did I uncheck it or something? Because there's the, well, oh yeah, you just click on the logo up there. So this pop-out block here with information about the home, so forth, that's what is put in here. You can put in, obviously, that example had my name, but this is where you credit the agent and their phone number and email contact, so forth. Pins I haven't dealt with yet, but pins are kind of like matter tags, I believe. And highlights, right now highlights are the 4 aerial panos, but the highlights are images that can appear over here.
Can you go back to pins for a moment?
And this can be in and out. Okay.
Yeah. I know you haven't used it. Let's just click on add pin and see what features pop up.
Click somewhere on the model to add a pin. Okay, so let me think. So here, that would be. It even looks like a matter tag.
There you go. So there's the title, the description, a URL, and a label, and the type. Let's see what the type are. It says default on edit pin. Let's see what else is on there.
Down, I want to see. You can see it right here.
Default.
Image,
so
video,
you could
custom.
have
Okay, so that's similar to Matterport.
Okay, image, video, and let's click on custom there. Okay, HTML. Okay, so that's cool. So, and then if we go back to video, I'm going to imagine that there's a link for what's it say?
YouTube or Vimeo.
Okay, very straightforward. Looks like matter tags. That clears up that question.
Yep.
Great. Okay.
Yeah. So it's I guess I'll go back here and how do I do this? I'm not sure how okay, so delete that pin. Might as well take it out since it doesn't do anything. Okay. So that's really it to the back end. It's all controlled in these things. Panoramas, I imagine, are likewise. I have not worked with this. I imagine this is where you go in to disable, to hide, in Matterport speak, to hide panos that you wanted for the sake of the Dollhouse, but you don't want active for the walkthrough. So anyway, that's the back door. That's the workshop and Geo. I think it could be. This is the workshop back end, by the way, to Nodal. And
for Nodal View,
Nodal View, and so, for example, I'll go out here to, let's see, patio. I go patio. We go to patio, and I'm going to see if I can find someplace like over in this area, in this corner behind that wall. I don't really need this, but that's the master bedroom on this house. You see, on this system, if you move your cursor close to an arrow point, it names where you're going. In Zillow's program, it creates little circles at the bottom, and the names are attached to them. And I actually kind of like the fact that the names stay there. But anyway, it takes you to different places. Now, if I wanted to create a link, for example, into the master bedroom directly from the patio, or actually, let me go to Pulio, patio, dining, portico. Did I make one? I'm trying to think. I did make one from there. I'm going to go back to the patio dining. Okay, so that's a little closer. It's a little bit more logical. Anyway, over in this corner is where the master bedroom is. Here, even more. In those doors is the living room. So, and in this window is, I have two living room positions. That's living room east. So I want to add hotspot. You click this and it creates an arrow, and I could put it like by that window if I wanted to. And then it says, choose the view. In other words, where is that going to? Well, I happen to know that that's the living room, the east end of the living room. So I've got living east here, and I select it. And then it gives me automatically that view inside the house, because this is setting up the return arrow. So in other words, if you're making a link from the patio to the master bedroom or the patio to the east end of the living room, chances are you want to have a link from the east of the living room back to the patio. Not necessarily, but possibly. And so it automatically, as soon as you select a place, it gives you that pano down here to aim where it is to that patio. So it's the return trip essentially. If you're going to fly from LA to New York, here's the way to go from New York back to LA. And then you can also disable this. If you want it only in one direction, you can disable this. But if you want it going both ways, save hotspot. And then it's done. If I go around here, you can see now that there's a link going into the east end of the living room directly from the patio dining panorama. And that's how you do. You basically go through all the processes. If I decide that you know what, I really don't need that link. So here, living east, I just get rid of it.
You want to just give us a quick tour of some of those other buttons down there?
Yeah, well, this is default view. When you launch, we're in the workshop here, so let me go to the thing, and I'm going to relaunch this. When you first launch a space, default view is which view of which pano you want to come up first. And I chose the living room looking toward the patio. The way you do that is you go, that was the entry looking toward the pano. So I would have to, you can go to all panos here. I'd have to scan through these pages to find out which, that was on the bottom right there. So here's entry. You can see this is highlighted right now, first scene. If I wanted to change and have the hallway west be the first scene, I would click this. I'll do that for a moment because I can always change it back. It brings up the panel. Takes a minute.
I think because we're connected with so many different things, we're slowing up your internet. No. Normally it just pops up quickly.
Yeah, but that comes
and
up.
And then you can set the view of when you enter that shot.
Yeah, and then you hit save, and if you hit save there, then when you launch the entire space, that will be the first view.
Okay.
Not the best view for this one, but anyway, that's it.
Yeah.
The thing here is spinning around, so it's saving that.
You want to take us to Zillow, back end of Zillow?
Yeah.
Back end of Zillow 3D home.
Here's my 3D. That's at Zillow.com. My 3D homes. There's a password login. So this particular house is this one. Note that it's telling me that all of my work is unpublished. That's because you can see if I do this, there's the address. Zillow searches addresses, we know that, so there it is. Save the association. Zillow Home is not available for your area. So in Los Angeles here, you can't post it up to Zillow publicly, but you can still build spaces.
Yeah, I think that's important for our community that really today you could go play with Zillow 3D Home. If you have a Rico Theta V, that maybe you got it to use with Matterport, you could be practicing with the Zillow 3D homes. Go shoot it, everything other than making it public, and at least that way you'd have some experience when you're ready to actually offer the service.
Yeah. This window here is this is the first time I ever used Zillow 3D Home, and you can see the Theta V does great work outdoors, and you can see what it does here. It produces little arrows. It just says foyer. Then you go inside, and here, as I spin around, you'll see the little circles at the bottom, and they're all named: Hall West, Living Room, Hall East, Front Door. So that's what it does. And you go around and you go through the home. This is a different home, and go outside. Let's go over and see the fire pit. Look around the backyard. There, the pool shot is over here. So you can move around.
Do you want to show us how you would change? Maybe you don't want 4 of those arrows for those sergeants at the bottom.
Yeah, I mean, I happen to believe in giving the visitor a lot of options for ways to go, so they have the ability to go directly to a lot of places.
Okay, so let's say you wanted to add another sergeant.
Yeah, so for example, let's see here. I'm thinking this is garden. Yeah, there's another one up the hill, way up the hill here. There's a place. So for example, and let me remember. Oh, well, I have to go out of this because right now I'm just viewing the tour.
Mm-hmm.
I go in here and go here. Sorry, I tap my screen. Edit tour. I got to go into edit tour, and now on the bottom I have. Where was I? I was out by the pool. So let me find the pool shot. Pretty close here. There's pool. Although the spa. There's the spa. Well, I'll go to the spa. What the heck?
Okay, that'll work.
So I am at the spa now, and let's say I wanted to add an arrow to, there's a slide down the hillside over here. So while I'm on the spa picture, I go back and forth to find what it is I want. Here, it's a super slide, add arrow. And then it puts, you can see an arrow down here with a little circular dotted line. And I rotate this until I'm pointing in the general direction toward that slide, which is up there. And once you've done that, you hit save up here and it's in there. And now you can see as I rotate around, the super slide option appears and disappears.
All right, cool. It's not hard. Yeah. Easy peasy.
It's pretty easy.
Unless there's something else you want to show us on the back end of that, let's take it off screen share if you don't mind.
Yep.
And then I had this is so helpful, Kevin. I got so many questions to ask you, so I don't.
Anytime, call me 3 o'clock in the morning. For you,
so,
anytime.
Well, let's maybe I could try it rapid fire with you. Geo CV. What's the learning curve for shooting?
If you've done Matterport, simple.
For Geo CV, what's the learning curve for the back end?
For the back end, I'd say it's fast because the logic is all the same. And admittedly, I haven't put the tags in. I mean, that today on this show was the first time I even hit one of their pins, but it looks simple, logical. The layout is almost, I'd say, simpler and more intuitive than Matterport's.
What's the learning curve for Geo CV aerial?
Bigger. If you're a drone flyer, the first step is to get to know Drone Deploy or DJI's product, Ground Station Pro, and to learn how to first geofence, program grids, set the overlaps, and fly your drone around to collect all those photos. The challenging part, that is, a couple times trial and error, you'll learn that process. The bigger challenge is the extra photos that you need to shoot of the home close down, which involves manually flying the drone around the property, looking at it. If this is the house, I've got to fly the drone all the way around, looking at the house, ideally down low, up higher, different angles, because you're trying to catch multiple overlapped pictures of all the exterior surfaces of the building. If the house has a deep overhang, like patios and stuff, you got to get down even lower so that some of those overlapping pictures are shot underneath that patio. Otherwise, it'll be kind of funky looking when the photogrammetry does its thing.
So learning curve, figure that you're going to have to shoot your first house 3 times before you get it right. But
yeah, I'd say first time out. And the trickiest part, and I'll try to convey this because this is the part that I had the hardest time with. Let's say this is the house, and when you use Ground Station Pro or Drone Deploy, you draw from the sky a rectangular or whatever shape area around it that you want to cover, and the drone will automatically go back and forth, shooting straight down in a zigzag pattern, back and forth all the way across the entire property, as if it was dropping almost nets on the ground or something, overlaps. Once it's done that grid, which is all from the same height, it's like an oven shelf, all those bars that you have on an oven shelf is the pattern it flies. Then when you do your manual flight, you need to start your manual flight by manually taking your drone back to the elevation that you did that grid at. And from there, start, because I shot that one at 200 feet up. Go back up there and manually start shooting at 200 feet out. And as you bring it down to the house, click, 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 so that there is essentially a connection, an overlapped sequential connection between all of those manually shot pictures going around the property, because all of those manual pictures somehow have to connect to the grid Ground Station Pro or Drone Deploy pattern of pictures up there. And so some of your manual pictures have to pick up where that led off, as if the whole thing was one simple move. That was where I had trial and error to learn how. And also Anton, in his immense patience, he and his other staff people explained.
This is GeoCV co-founder and CEO Anton Yakobenko.
Yeah, the work that they did to explain to me how those have to be connected. Just as Matterport or GeoCV on the ground going through the house every 6 or 8 feet, we know that, so that they sense each other, those different scans. When you're flying that drone around, think of, you're essentially doing that same connectedness, except in 3D space, going up to 200 feet, 150 feet, 100 feet, 75 feet, and coming out to the angle and making sure that those are all sequentially close enough to one another that the photogrammetry algorithms can grab them all, figure, oh yeah, I understand this one up here that you shot manually is almost in the same place as one of those drone deploy shots that were shot straight down. So, okay, we got a lock. It's like when you go back to, like I've often shot Matterport, say you do a living room that opens onto a patio, but the patio's in bright sun, and I go back later in the day, 3-4 hours later, to pick up and go out onto the patio because it's now in shade. Oftentimes, it's really tough to get an alignment because the lighting is so different. And you have to put the Matterport camera in almost the exact same position it was in on a previous scan and let the infrared make the alignment connection before you go out onto the patio because the light's so different. Same thing you sort of have to do in the 3-dimensional airspace to gather that external information.
So GeoCV scanning, somewhat easy peasy. GeoCV backend, somewhat easy peasy.
Yes.
GeoCV 3D aerial uh, takes a little bit more time, energy, and effort, but I'm going to guess in your case, you're totally excited that you can now offer GeoCV 3D aerial mashed up with your GeoCV 3D tour.
I am very excited about it because I do get called on to do a good number of pretty high-end homes. And for those, particularly homes that sit on large pieces of property. I mean, there are homes, within a 30-mile radius of here that have their own vineyards and, just all kinds of interesting terrain elements. And for that, it's a one-of-a-kind product.
GeoCV just started to be available to service providers in the United States starting at the end of January. Are you among the first to order GeoCV?
Yes, I'm just, as a matter of fact, I was busy this past week. I have to go in and look at his various packages and decide which way I'm going to go on this. But to me, it's just killer. It's killer what he's done. And I'm very happy to have gone through at least the deepest pain of the process, of the learning curve at this point. And also because the indoor-outdoor process is more challenging to do. It's also, I know that there's not going to be 20 people doing it tomorrow. 2 years from now, maybe, but it takes a lot more effort to do.
So when would you decide to do Matterport versus GeoCV?
Well, I have, without naming addresses, I have a very interesting situation on my hands right now. One of my best clients has had me shoot still photos and ground-based video on a property that's not dissimilar to the one that I featured in this four-way demo. It sits on the edge of a slope down to a golf course, and it's on a pretty big piece of property too. It's even a bigger home. It's about 8,000 square feet. And I showed the client what you've seen today, the Calabasas 3D exterior, and he said, great, let's do it. Well, I was out there the other day and I shot stills. And toward the end of the day, we couldn't do the exteriors very well because there was about a 40, 50 mile an hour wind blowing, and the palm trees all look like, ah! So it wasn't so good. I have to go back to do exteriors. But it was calm enough at the end of the day that I took my little drone out and went to fire it up just to go up even 30 feet and get a couple exteriors of the house, some stills. It wouldn't take off. And so, and it gave me some warnings. It says, you can't fly here. And I figured I knew what that meant, but I got home and did the research, and I'm within about 3 miles of Camarillo Airport. And I'm within a FAA geofenced zone that is labeled 0, which means no flying unless you get special arrangements. And at this point, we're researching. We may not be able to. It's possible I may not be able to even fly up 30 feet in the air, lower than the trees, and shoot exteriors of the house. So
that's too bad. You got a yes from a client, and
yep.
FAA may keep you grounded.
That's right.
Maybe just a backup. Hopefully, you'll be able to work that out. Maybe you'll be able to get FAA approval to.
Yeah, we'll see.
To do the house, but just a tip, just in case, you might consider satellitepanoramas.com. Satellitepanoramas.com. You can actually order 360 photospheres that are aerial, that are created not from drone, but from the Google Street View, the Google satellite photography.
Right.
And you can specify you want it up 200 feet, 300 feet, 400 feet. You want it 500 feet away from the house or 1,000 feet, whatever. Not going to be the same thing as 3D aerial,
yeah.
But you still might be able to get a couple aerial shots to show off that amazing landscape doesn't seem to be the right word.
Yeah, terrain.
Terrain, dreamscape, whatever.
I'll,
Anyway, and as
I'll
a WGAN standard member, you get 50% off on your satellite panorama.
I will throw something else out there in case someone's watching today or in the future this video. One of the other things that I have, there are a lot of major cities, including much of Los Angeles, that has been extensively 3D mapped from the air, such that you can hit the 3D button on Google Maps or on Apple Maps and get quite attractive 3D renderings of homes in 3 dimension, and you can turn it around and so forth, such as I created with Geo CV's help through their program. In certain situations where there's really good data that's in the Apple Maps or Google Maps system in 3D, it would be really cool to be able to extract that out and essentially marry that, particularly in a situation like this where I may not be able to fly because of
yes.
the geography near an airport.
Satellitepanoramas.com makes it super easy. You don't have to know anything about exporting anything.
But that's to give you a static photosphere from a particular position. What I'm talking about is the 3D data that the interactive 3D data that you have in Google Maps and in Apple Maps.
You may be able to just add that to your WP3D model single property website and just add the link or embed code for that.
Yeah, you can do that.
Might give that a try.
That's a possibility.
All right, I want to ask this question again. So I know if you have an aerial opportunity for 3D, hands down, you're making a decision for Geo CV. But if you were just shooting a 5,000 square foot, nice multi-million-dollar home, not doing any aerial, it sounds like you're going to own 2 platforms cameras here shortly. Are you picking Matterport or are you picking Geo CV, and why?
I would go with Matterport if the customer really wanted the programmed showcase tour, because Geo doesn't have that yet. That's one thing. Matter tagging, I don't get a lot of calls for matter tagging the spaces that I create. So that's not a big deal. Besides, they both do it. It's a toughie. On one side,
I'm wondering about this white label stuff. I mean,
yes. Oh, I know. That's where I was just going to go. On one side, the showcase tour Matterport has, and they don't yet. But the white labeling, boy, selfishly speaking, I'd sure prefer that. So that's
floor plan. Floor plan view?
I haven't asked Geo if they output like a PDF of the floor plan. It would seem obvious that was a capability, because it's built in right to the display, superimposed over the model internally. So
yes, you can get floor plans. I don't recall which format that it's provided in,
right.
But you can export floor plans.
Yeah. So that's to me, that's the big balance right now, is the showcase tour. If presuming I'm setting aside the exterior, the outdoor view, if I'm not doing the outdoor view, which does take more time and effort, and has additional cost to it, and it's right now the exterior thing is not a regular product that Geo is offering. It's an individual thing that you essentially have to hire their team to do if they have the time to do it, because they're doing so much. And there's this not insignificant additional cost to building that whole external thing. But for high-end properties, I would think it's very worth it. For low-end properties, not. But the showcase tour on one side, some of my clients really like that. The fact that they can press it once and it takes you through the house.
Yep.
Almost like a video.
Yeah.
So that's a plus that Matterport still has right now.
All right. Cool.
So it's, yeah.
Nodal View. You liked it.
I love it.
You buying a kit, a Nodal View kit?
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely.
Rico Theta V. Are you buying the Rico Theta?
Rico Theta V, I'm still thinking about.
Okay.
And of course, the Theta Z1 is an interesting thing there. It's much more expensive.
Are you going to get one or the other, or you're still not sure yet?
Between
Rico, if you want to shoot, if you want to shoot Zillow 3D Home, you need a Rico Theta V. Presumably, the Rico Theta Z1 is going to work just fine as well.
right.
Obviously, more money, but presumably better quality.
And Zillow is saying Zillow has stated that they expect to add more and more cameras into the system. I'm sure that Insta1 is probably high on their list, and so on and so forth.
Oh, okay. So that's interesting.
They've not committed publicly to anything, but they have publicly said, yes, we are going to be adding more cameras.
Okay. Incidentally, if you're interested in borrowing an Insta360 1X, that's also in the We Get Around Network 360 loaner camera program.
Yeah, well, high on my list is the comparison. I was gonna, didn't have time today because I'm here, but I was going to search YouTube to see if look for videos comparing those two cameras, just to learn, because
comparing which two?
Theta V and Insta 360.
Ah, okay.
Because those are
I think if you go into the We Get Around Network forum and you type in the search box Rico Theta V versus Insta360 1X, you'll find content in the forum. For example, you'll be able to see a comparison of Matterport 3D tour that was shot using an Insta360 1X and a Rico Theta V. I think, plus, if we make that ask in the community to ask people to keep publishing their tours, you'd get some more tours.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's the question you're asking me, though, because do you want to see the video quality as well, or you just care about the
360 video isn't a big thing for me. They both do video as well, don't they?
Yes. So I think that's probably something coming in your visual storytelling. You're just not ready to do that. Me personally, I could imagine, Kevin, you having your 360 camera, bad example on my tripod here, wish I had my Rico, but handing it to your real estate agent and say, just walk through the house and tell your tour. Or walk through the house and tell me the tour and tell me about what makes this house special and tell me about all the features and why someone would want to buy this home. And I just imagine that that's something that will be added to your visual storytelling, is a 360 video told by, some real estate agents would be totally into that, and some would be totally frightened by that. But I think if you find the right agent, you just simply give them the camera on a pole and just have them walk the space, and you do the editing. I think it would turn into a beautiful video.
Yeah, that's an interesting. It is a very interesting idea, and it'll be particularly interesting if the Z1 does. It supposedly has a RAW mode. Raw photographic mode. So in principle, you could take the video out of it and pull it through Lightroom sort of controls to, open up the blacks and crush down the whites and do better with the indoor-outdoor.
Yeah. Personally, I would say don't get overly focused on the mechanics and the technology. These 360 cameras are getting better in quality constantly, and the cost is coming down constantly. I think today is the opportunity to experiment and just, find the agent. The person who's buying the home is not focused on in my opinion, they're not focused on the quality of the blackness of the image or the pixel or the sharpness. They want to see the home. And if they can use their finger and just walk through the home with that video and be turning around and looking and getting a full immersed tour, I think it's worth experimenting with and seeing if it's yet something else that will differentiate home3d.us.
I think you have a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, if I was you with an agent, some agents, maybe they could go talk for 10 minutes walking through the house unprompted, but I think it's possible even for, for you to be in the tour and just saying, tell me about the kitchen, as you walk in, so that it's really two people involved in a conversation.
Which is it's a great idea. I'm going to try it. I'm going to find somebody who wants to try that and do it. Absolutely.
Publish it in the We Get Around Network forum. Show us what that looks like.
Will do.
Okay,
Will do.
Good. All right.
Yeah.
So on Nodal View, learning curve in terms of shooting.
Fast. In fact, the first time I shot it, I actually shot it wrong, in a minor way. The first time I shot it, I put hold up your Nodal View camera, and
put it horizontal when you shot it.
Hold it in front of the lens with the lens side. Yeah, hold it with the lens side toward your computer camera. Yeah, like you're taking a picture. Okay, now if Dan, now you take a look at it yourself. You have it set up right now the way I first shot with it, and then Thomas corrected me.
Oh, I don't actually, bad on me. I don't have it lined up correctly.
You don't have it on Node, right?
I did that too quickly before so actually what I want to do is to thank you for catching that. And I guess that's a really good point, is you really want to have the lens right on top of the nodal point.
Exactly.
When it rotates, you don't have that parallax error.
Vertically, the lens wants to be directly over the center of the rotator. So the camera, and because the camera in smartphones is put out, is positioned in a corner of the camera, not in the middle. That's why the mount can be offset, and everyone watching this can now see that if you draw a line directly down from the lens, it goes right through the middle of the rotator. That's why the stitching is so superb on Nodal View, because when it rotates around, there's no misalignment at all. The lens is directly on node.
And thus the name of hence Nodal View, right? And here I am. I'm doing a little demo earlier, and I don't have the lens perfectly aligned, and I should know better.
Yeah.
But I could imagine, it doesn't take you, if you do one tour with it shot wrong and you see that there's a problem, I promise you're not going to do that again.
Well, the truth be told, on the first time I shot and I didn't line it up properly, the reason that Thomas, even when it's poorly aligned, it's only.
This is Thomas, who's the co-founder and CEO of Nodal View.
Yeah. When Thomas pointed it out to me, even when it's out of alignment, it's only off by an inch. It's very, and unless you have objects that are very close to the camera, you're probably not going to have any stitching errors anyway. However, Thomas, in his persnickety perfection, noticed in a bathroom there was a shot where the camera was seen in the mirror, and he came back, he took a screenshot of it, sent it back to me by email, says, aha, you didn't line it up right, I can see right there.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing is we've been talking about you interacting with the co-founder and CEO of Nodal View, the co-founder and CEO of Geo CV. These entrepreneurs are very hands-on, accessible, and really wanted to make sure you had a great experience and help get you up to speed, plus their team members. I think that's cool. I think when I've shot with Nodal View in a bathroom, it's the first thing I'm obsessed. I went to look for stitching errors, because the camera was pretty close to door jams or something. I couldn't find any. So I think I probably lined up the Nodal View with the Nodal View correctly. But I think if you do it wrong once, it ain't going to happen again.
No, you'll get an email from Thomas.
you get an email. And what was that camera doing in the mirror anyway? But actually, the interesting thing with Nodal View is you can actually export the 360. You can touch it up, and then you can
Yes.
import it back into Nodal View.
Yes.
And so that
something else you cannot do with Zillow's 3D Home.
Opens up all kinds of possibilities.
Yeah, Thomas's HDR is so good that you probably won't bother, but you can if you wish.
It's available. So if a client had something that was, the family pictures, and you wanted to blur the pictures or something, you could export it, touch it up. Maybe we're just talking about the small percentage of us, but Nodal View backend, how hard to learn?
Very, very easy. I mean, I demoed it quickly there. Basically, you open up any panel, hit edit, just say add hotspot. It's called add hotspot. And that brings up the arrow. You position the arrow where you want it, identify, okay, this arrow is pointing to the living room. You pull that from the drop-down list and choose the living room, and then it pops up the reverse angle view. That's procedurally, it's not necessarily faster or slower to a big extent, but it helps you not to forget completing all the links, because each time you make a link from LA to New York, it basically almost forces you to make a link from New York back to LA, so that you do them all in pairs.
So easy peasy to do the back end of Nodal View. Essentially was super easy to learn to shoot. It was super easy to learn to do the post production on it,
and really fun to upload aerial panos and then to put an arrow up in the sky to where it's going
and tie it back.
Yeah.
And then Zillow 3D Home. How hard to learn to shoot?
Very, very easy to shoot. There was one technical challenge that they're still working on. For some reason, and I'm shooting with the Theta V, which is their first authorized camera on the system. And I've tried using both my iPad Pro and my iPhone 8. In both cases, if I got more than about 8 or 9 feet away from that Theta V, the Wi-Fi connection would just drop. It would just.
So the tip I would have on that is use the timer on the Ricoh Theta V. Yeah. So you could set it for 10 seconds and then bolt out of the shot, and then you wouldn't have to worry about the connecting.
Yes, but I'm not sure that you don't need to worry about it anyway, because keep in mind that whereas the rig that you just showed us for Nodal View is the whole thing. It's the screen, it's the lens, it's the rotator, and so forth. But in the case of Zillow, the Theta V is taking the picture, but it's downloading the picture Matterport style to your iPhone or thing. And every time I would get sometimes not even 10 feet away, barely hiding around a corner, and it would drop the connection, and then I had to go through the process of reconnecting the camera over and over and over and over again.
Okay, that sounds that sounds hugely painful.
Yeah, it was.
I think the next time that we have the Zillow 3D Home team on our show, we'll ask about the connectivity issues. I suspect that what you described, Kevin, is maybe because I want to say that in the We Get Around Network forum, there have been other members that have talked about this connectivity issue. That may be what's holding it up from
they are fully aware of the problem.
Yeah. Okay.
The latest I heard is that they had basically a workaround, which was like using the timer or something, but it still drops a connection for downloading the data. So that's it. So in that sense, the Nodal View system is simpler and completely dependable because it's all right there. There's no Wi-Fi, there's no nothing. There's no Wi-Fi, there's no Bluetooth. It's all right there. It just takes the pictures and stitches them and the whole thing. And the other thing that I like about Nodal View is because it's your phone with the lens and it's turning around Matterport or Geo CV style, in most cases, you don't have to run around the corner to the next room. You can just stand behind the camera. sometimes with Matterport, I want to get the camera way in the corner of a room so I can't hide behind it as it rotates. So I have to, hide around the corner. But in the case of Nodal View, you're not going to take your pictures in the butted right up against the wall. You're gonna do it in the middle of a room most of the time. So as it rotates around, you can just stay behind it. And so in a certain sense, you can almost move faster. Even though it does turn around, it takes 8 pictures, as Dan is demonstrating right now. It's taking a picture and then it rotates. It's doing its HDR thing, rotates and takes 8 positions. So it takes a little longer because it has to rotate 8 positions. Whereas the Theta V with the Zillow takes 1 picture and then you go. But I like the fact that I can stay with the camera, that I don't have to run around a corner and risk dropping the Wi-Fi connection. Because I've had a lot of problem with that Wi-Fi, maintaining the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, that sounds like a huge problem. It's got to get resolved.
It will get, I'm sure that they will resolve it. I mean, Wi-Fi dropping at 10 feet is absurd. I mean, when I went out shooting with that thing, I had to pick positions where I knew I was close enough to something that I could hide behind. And in a backyard, that's hard. I'd shoot next to a palm tree. I'd shoot next to a palm tree, run behind the palm tree and stand sideways as much as I could, so that I'd be hidden,
That sounds familiar. I think I've done that too. All right. So we've been going at it for quite some time. Let's just kind of go up to kind of a big picture. You shot with 4 systems. Incidentally, no Cupix. Why not shooting with Cupix?
Cupix. I am an absolute beginner on Cupix, but I have started to get my head around how it works, which is quite different than everything else. To me, the way Cupix works is not ideal for residential real estate, which is what I do. At the same time, their system is gangbusters for warehouses and AEC spaces covering a large amount of ground, and it thinks and it processes very differently, and it's very clever, and it works well in its own way. But I'm still getting my head around how it works and how to process it on the desktop side once you've shot it. So I have a lot of respect for what Cupix has done. At the same time, I can't see anybody using it for residential real estate, because these other processes are simpler, faster, and or in some cases do more or do different. They do differently, which works better for the real estate clients that we serve.
And I imagine if you showed up with the 5th solution, the homeowner might have killed you.
They were anxious to see me go after that, 4th day.
So, Kevin, this has been like a gift that you've given the community, shooting with the same multi-million-dollar property with Matterport 3D Tour, Geo CV 3D Tour, Nodal View 360 Tour, Zillow 3D Home 360 Tour. Are you glad you did this?
Oh, absolutely. Had I not done this, I wouldn't have. I love what you've created in the forum itself, Dan, and I have so much respect for you and the outreach that you've done for I don't know how many years now, even before I was on the forum, to share information with photographers all around the world. And it's a go-to place. You got a question, you got a problem, you go there, and somebody else is going to chime in and probably has the answer. There's so many people on the forum, it'd be hard to stump them all. If this is, I was number one really excited to try out Geo CV ever since I saw that very first big manor house in upstate New York that they put out and was publicized on Inman maybe 6-8 months ago. to try that out and learn that process, because I think I will have some clients that want to do it. So that was the starting point. And from there, when you when you started playing with Nodal View and putting up things, I likewise was stunned by the HDR. So I wanted to try that for sure. And Zillow, of course, Zillow does have Zillow. It has the ability to, no matter what Zillow creates, whether it's good or great or fair, they can put it in front of millions of eyeballs. And they have the platform to do that. So they have something that none of these other platforms have in that sense. To a small degree, Matterport has it through their connection with Realtor, but not to the extent that Zillow does. And Zillow's the 800-pound gorilla. And so I wanted to learn that process, just because I have had clients that have hired me, not for very much, but have hired me to go out to a property and just shoot a Zillow video, where they already had photos. Maybe they took themselves or whatever, but they wanted that bump on Zillow that the video would give them. And so if 3D Home is going to get that bump, I need to know that. If it would be a dream, of course, if Nodal View could be plugged into the Zillow 3D Home and get the bump as well. Let's fingers crossed that things like that happen in the future. But it's a so there are reasons why I really wanted to know how to use all four of these processes, because I anticipate situations in which one or another will be better for the marketing of a property, or be more preferred by a client for the marketing of a property. I will push in a certain direction, but I'm by nature, I'm just a very candid person. I'm going to tell people up front what you can get and what you can't get from each process if they're curious to know.
Kevin, why don't you assume for a moment, I'm a Zillow executive. You just shot the same property 4 times. What do you want to tell me?
A Zillow executive. Well, number one, I think Zillow has done a great thing by trying to push people to use more media. Most of the platforms traditionally were happy just pull the still pictures from the MLS and that's fine. That's all the customer needs. Zillow pushed video for starting 2 years ago. Now they're doing 3D Home because they want to democratize the idea. They would love it if every listing that showed up on Zillow gave online shoppers, buyers, the ability to walk through the home and see the rooms and look around. The general public is smarter than we give them credit for. They will look at pictures that have been beautifully photoshopped and corrected and shot with really wide lenses that make tiny living rooms look huge. And they once they've seen a picture and then they've gone to a house and said, oh my God, this is that, how'd they take that picture in here? They know not to believe their eyes. And the 3D walkthrough process gives them more information that's a bit more honest. Number one, because it generally speaking can't be or isn't photoshopped. And number two, because you can look all the way around. So, as a still photographer doing HDR traditionally with my Sony a7S II, I'm backed into the corner of the room with that wide angle lens all the time. But when you shoot a 360, you're out in the middle of the room and you get a much more realistic view from the human perspective. And so I think Zillow wants people to have information. And so I think it's great that they have pushed the envelope, push the envelope a bit. It would be, of course, great if Zillow would embrace multiple platforms of information, whether they have to do it with separate buttons along the bottom of the picture, or they put all walkthroughs into the 3D home button, and they already put all kinds of videos into the video button. In case everyone out there doesn't know, you can also do a professional video like we showed at the very beginning of this broadcast, and upload it to Zillow, and they will plug it into that Zillow video button. And yes, that listing gets the same bump in their search that a Zillow video shot on an iPhone would get. So I think it's, I mean, I encourage Zillow, and I encourage one of my, I'll try to make this quick, but one of my rants against Realtor for what, 2 years now, ever since Matterport has had automatic uploads, they've got that little tiny button down there that says 3D view with a microscopic little hexagon in color. Make it big. Call it Matterport. If Matterport's the only thing that can go in there, use Matterport's logo. Stick it on there. Blast it. I mean, people barely can see that thing. At least Zillow puts something on their video, 3D home, and it's big enough that you can see, oh, there's something here to click. Let me try it. You know, the two buttons that can appear for videos and other kinds of links, and for Matterport on Realtor.com are so tiny that why bother? Realtor.com should on the, when you type in Realtor.com and go to the landing page, there should be something up there that says our site is the only one, well, not the only one, because Homes.com has it as well, but our site displays properties with Matterport 3D. I think, and I wrote to them a year ago saying, put a little button up there someplace right on the landing page that filters for homes that have Matterport walkthroughs, so that, yes, if somebody's shopping in New Rochelle, they're going to search for New Rochelle for all properties. But a lot of people love to just window shop homes. Look at the HD television and all the home rebuilding makeover. There are people that are not in the market to buy a home, that just love to watch other people's homes. Realtor should put a button up there, search, filter for Matterport, and it could show you in New York State or in New York City area, and it shows you all the listings where you can walk through homes. They'd get people going on there for entertainment purposes. and they'd show off the one huge difference that Realtor has against Matterport right now. Or maybe Matterport does a deal with Geo, and they put a button up there, walk through Geo homes or whatever. I don't know. There's something there, I think, that is being overlooked, because there are people who consume home media. Anyway,
Kevin, I don't know why you and I see this so clearly, but you know, as professional photographers, we want to shoot a home once. We don't want to shoot 4 different solutions. If we're shooting with Geo CV, we want to be able to shoot once with Geo CV, publish it to Geo CV, publish it to Matterport, publish it to Zillow 3D Home. If we're shooting with Nodal View, we want to be able to publish to Zillow. We want to be able, if we're shooting with Nodal View, we want to be able to publish to Nodal View. We also want to publish to Zillow 3D Home. If we're shooting with Matterport, we want to be able to publish to Matterport. We want to be able to publish to Zillow 3D Home.
Well, let me express it slightly differently. Whether we shoot with Matterport or Geo CV or Nodal View or whatever is announced tomorrow, we want to be able to publish it to the MLS, to Zillow, to Realtor.com, to Homes.com, to Trulia. We want to do work that helps our clients, and it doesn't help our client to have a fabulous piece that nobody sees. The more these pieces, this work is available to customers. And one thing there's no question in my mind, the people that are crazy for walkthroughs, whether they're 360 walkthroughs or they're Dollhouse high-end walkthroughs, the people who are crazy for this is buyers. They don't want to spend 3 weeks riding around in the back seat of an agent's Mercedes, and the agent doesn't want to spend 3 weeks showing them homes that they don't buy. And after buyers have walked through homes using one of these processes, and then they call up the agent and say, you know what, that 123 Main Street, I want to see that house. If they've already walked through the house online, that agent is getting a meaningful call, not a call that's just going to take 2 hours out of their day and go nowhere. So it helps the agents, although many of them don't understand that. Buyers, there's no question they understand it. But if buyers really drove the wagon, then every property by this time next year would have a walkthrough. But buyers are not the ones that are funding it. It's the sellers and the agents and the brokerages. So there's a disconnect there in the economic world. But buyers are crazy about walkthroughs, and they want them.
So let us hope that all the platforms and cameras are starting to talk to each other so that we all can shoot once, publish to many places, and not have to think about shooting a property 4 different ways for 4 different platforms.
Absolutely.
Kevin, I'm going to ask you, sorry, go on.
No, less on. I mean, my broad general thought recommendation sort of for professional photographers is master Matterport or Geo CV, master at least 3D Home, if not Nodal View. And those are products for high-end homes and every home. And Zillow's idea of democratizing the process so that every home can have a walkthrough at some level is a great idea. So I think that we professional photographers, if you do Matterport and every single client that calls you doesn't say, yeah, come out, the price is right, shoot it. If you have any clients that say, I can't afford that, so forth, then you need to learn Nodal View. Because that way you have a product that you can do for them at a price point that probably will work for them. So I think that these 2 tiers need to be covered right now. Your idea that you could use a geo camera to do anything is possible. You know, at the same time, you wouldn't need the complexity of a geo and the expense of a Geo CV camera if you were simply going to try to do a Nodal View presentation with simple 360s. So to me, those 2 tiers you almost need to have in your kit right now if you're going to be a high-end photographer. Or if you're going to be a full-service photographer, you need to be able to do the big Dollhouse walkthroughs and the simpler 360 walkthroughs. Cool.
So I have 2 more questions for you. I have one statement to make, and I want you to be, while I'm talking for a moment, I want you to be thinking about any parting thoughts, and then I'm going to ask you 2 more questions. Right. What I want to say to our listeners is just thank you again to Kevin, who has given the community a gift by shooting the same multi-million-dollar home in Calabasas, California, with Matterport 3D Tour, Geo CV 3D Tour, Nodal View 360 Tour, Zillow 3D Home 360 Tour, and Kevin has shared all these 3D and 360 tours in the We Get Around Network Forum, WGAN-Forum.com. You can go take a look at each of the tours and see the exact same home shot with 4 different solutions. And I think that's a total, thank you, Kevin. I think it's a total gift that you've given us. I think part of this, maybe as you described in the forum today, moment of insanity began when we had as courtesy of Geo CV had given us a Geo CV kit so that We Get Around could add it to the WGAN 360 camera loaner program. And Kevin was the first member of our community to take advantage of that. And I think at that point, Kevin saw Nodal View, and Nodal View had given us 3 Nodal View kits. Kevin borrowed a Nodal View kit. And then while he was at it, he said, well, I'm here. I might as well see what else I can shoot. Borrowed a Ricoh Theta V from the WGAN 360 camera loaner program. So you can borrow any one of those 3 solutions. Plus, we have an Insta360 One X. We've reached out to Ricoh to ask them to provide us with one or more Insta360.
You mean the Z1?
Z1. And excuse me, forgive me, I'm a little bit tired. We've reached out to Ricoh to ask them to provide a Ricoh Theta Z1 for our loaner program, one or more of those cameras. And we do have tripod heads. So for Matterport, if you're thinking about one of different tripod heads, we got probably 10 different heads that you can borrow. We're talking to some tripod companies, monopods, about providing stuff. So anyway, if you're a We Get Around Network Basic Standard or Premium member, at no charge to you, you can borrow whatever's in our library of loaner, whatever's in our loaner program. And all we ask you to do is pay for the shipping and then the insurance to send it either back to me in Atlanta or to the next We Get Around Network member that's on the waiting list. So anyway, just wanted to share that with you about how to borrow a 360 camera. We do not have a Matterport camera for loan, but we do have the Geo CV kit. And
that reminds me, one thing that I should add. As people go through the links and look at the sample jobs I did, I wanted to add the disclaimer that my Matterport was shot with the Pro 1 camera, not the Pro 2. So if you notice that the resolution of the Geo CV is a little bit higher, a little bit sharper than the Matterport, that's on my end. I have never upgraded to the Pro 2 camera for the simple reason that my clients never have been interested in still photos drawn from the Matterport. They always want professional HDR separate photography. So I just stick with the Pro 1 camera. But I want to be upfront about that.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. I would say, Kevin, you could probably use MP Embed, the overlay for Matterport Showcase, and make your colors pop a little bit better on the Matterport 3D tour shot with the Matterport Pro 1 camera. It's something that I would suggest you might take a look at, because you can do a lot of things in terms of color saturation and
that's great. Yeah, I have just begun to use MP Embed.
Okay.
Literally last week, first time.
Awesome. And know that as a standard member, you get the free use of MP Embed Premium Basic. So check out the Welcome On Board letter about how to get the free use of the premium tier on Basic. And I think you'd actually find that make your tours a little bit brighter in terms of color. I think you'd be happier with it. And there's some other features I think that you'd probably like.
There are definitely some cool features. I've only scratched the surface at this point, but I'm impressed, and I'm going forward. I'm definitely going to learn it.
Cool. So let's see. The last 2 questions I have for you. The first one is anything that you want to add that we didn't discuss today that, like, oh gosh, we really should have covered.
No, I think we've beat this horse.
I'm sure your wife and my wife would watch almost 3 hours of today's show. Isn't that right?
I think that they would tune it off in the first 30 seconds. They have to live it.
Well, yeah, my wife won't watch even the first 30 seconds.
Dan, are you getting a tan?
All right. Here's last thing, and then we'll say goodbye. The last thing is completely off topic, but
Okay.
I still got to cover it. Matterport just got a whole pile of money in a new round of funding,
Ah,
and I think, have talked a little bit in the past about Matterport needs to help create demand from the home seller so that the home seller will ask the real estate agent to say, I'm a sophisticated buyer. I'm talking to a number of agents. If you want my business, you have to offer Matterport 3D tour of my home.
absolutely.
Okay, so I've paraphrased. Let's pretend that I'm the new CEO of Matterport, and you've just read in the We Get Around Network forum that we just raised the boatload of money. What do you want me to? How do you want me to spend that money?
I want you to spend that money making the general public aware of Matterport and what it does for them as buyers. For one, Mr. Matterport, you or Ms., you have a golden goose and you haven't asked it to lay an egg yet. The golden goose is your connection with Realtor. You share backers. Both the Realtor.com platform and Matterport share financial backers. Realtor.com is in a race to stay viable against the 800-pound gorilla of Zillow. And one of the ways, in fact, it's the biggest single way that I can even imagine that Realtor can differentiate itself, is to advertise to the general public any way they can, even television, that, hey, come to Realtor.com. At our site, you can walk through homes without having to leave your living room. And that's something that Zillow has, as we know, several years back, Zillow put up Matterport for 6 months or so and then took it down. I guess we have to presume that there's some feud between turf wars going on there, but because of investors. But Realtor has the advantage. Homes.com as well, but Homes is way down the list in terms of pulling eyeballs. Last I heard, Zillow has 3 times the views of Realtor, but this is one unique thing that Realtor has that Zillow does not: Matterport walkthroughs. They should be pushing it everywhere they can, and they should advertise the fact that they have Zillow walkthroughs on the landing page that you go to when you hit Realtor.com before you even start searching. And they should include a filter for Matterport. That is not something that helps to sell homes directly, but it helps to sell Realtor.com, and it will draw people. It will draw some people, at least. What they ought to do is put that big thing on the Realtor.com landing page, and then put ads on the HG network and in any place where there are home shows on cable about fixing up your home and buying homes and selling homes and $1 million homes and lakeside homes and oceanfront homes and all that stuff on television. They ought to be buying ads on there and exposing the fact that Realtor.com has Matterport, because their big competitor that they're struggling against doesn't, or has refused to thus far. So that's my thing. And of course, on the separate side, Matterport is a great process. The vast majority of real estate agents are never going to do it by themselves. They're going to hire a photographer to do it. So don't bother advertising to agents. Advertise to photographers and advertise to the general public, because that will spur the use of Matterport on every listing nationwide.
Home seller has to ask the real estate agent for
Absolutely.
the Matterport 3D tour.
Absolutely.
Kevin, thanks so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
We've been visiting with Kevin Dole. Kevin is a Los Angeles-based Matterport service provider. His company, home3d.us, that's, you see it on the screen there, is exactly the website address and the name of the company, home3d.us. And we've been visiting with Kevin about his experience shooting the same multi-million-dollar home in Calabasas, California, with Geo CV 3D Tour, Matterport 3D Tour, Zillow 3D Home 360 Tour, and with Nodal View 360 Tour. Again, all those examples have been published by Kevin in the We Get Around Network Forum, WGAN-Forum.com. If you missed any portion of today's show, we've been recording it, and by tomorrow, Friday, March 22nd, 2019, we'll post it in the We Get Around Network Forum. Thanks for tuning in, and I'm Dan Smigrod, founder of the We Get Around Network Forum in Atlanta. Kevin, thanks again in Los Angeles.
You're welcome, Dan. My pleasure to be here.